Hello, fellow Gwent players. So yesterday, yeah boy, Mr. Hobble1 had a little bit to drink. And having a hangover, you do realize that that is the most raw side of yourself. So what better time than this to review the cards that have been revealed to us so far. So far they've released 38 cards, which is about more than half of the cards that are going to be released this expansion, which is a total of 70 cards. Some of the card reviews might be a bit vague since I'm still not entirely, aware of my surroundings. But yeah, let's just jump into these reviews and see what I think about the cards. Also, there's not going to be a particular order. As you can see, these are the files I have. I've not named them, so it's going to be random which cards I actually review so far, so let's just get into this. Alright, so the first card we have here is Roland Blindheim. Whenever a unit is poisoned, gain 2 coins. Adrenaline 5, whenever an allied unit is poisoned, gain 2 coins instead. So this card is a pretty good card, honestly, even for its first ability. You play this as a proactive play, and then you just use Fist Take on an opponent's card and just hope the opponent doesn't sort of have Purifies to deal with your poisons, and then you can start playing your self-poison cards after, Adrenaline 5. Oh yeah, I also have to kind of explain Adrenaline 5, don't I? So, Adrenaline 5 basically means if you have 5 cards in hand, that Adrenaline ability will work. So, if you have 4 cards, 3 cards, 2 cards, 0 cards in hand, the Adrenaline 5 is triggered. So, yeah, that's how Adrenaline works, or that's when it starts to work, is when you have the specified amount of cards in your hand. And yeah, Adrenaline 5 here, it does make sense to call it sort of a downside, since you don't want to poison your own units, but there's obviously going to be a whole archetype around the fact that you poison your own units, which could be an interesting archetype, honestly, and I'm looking forward to seeing what other cards are going to be revealed to us. Alright, and I'm also going to give these cards a rating of 1 to 10. This Roland Blindheim, I'll probably give it a solid 5, honestly. It's a decent proactive play. It's not like an engine that the opponent necessarily wants to deal with. Also, it might take the opponent some time to deal with it. But the problem is if you're playing something like, obviously, Scoia'tael no unit or Tactic Nilfgaard, you drop this card and it'll probably just die anyway because, they want to play for Venendal Elite, which goes quite tall, so if that gets poisoned, it's not going to be that great for them. But yeah, it's going to be quite nice to sort of have a very decent proactive play for something like Fist Tech or Fist Tech Trafficker in Syndicate, because Syndicate's proactivity these days is kind of reliant on Hidden Cache and the engines that Hidden Cache has, whereas now with this card you can maybe add more sort of poison stuff into your deck. One of those self-poison cards is Salamander Abomination. Tribute 1, poison self. Whenever this unit is poisoned, boost self by 2, Adrenaline 4. At the end of your turn, purify self. So this is like a late game sort of engine that you kind of can play earlier against decks that don't really play for statuses. Yeah, I guess against Skellige decks or so, you're not gonna have too much trouble getting this on early, but I guess something like Nilfgaard or maybe Scoia'tael and definitely Hidden Cache, this is gonna be a bit awkward to play early on, but Purifying Self is pretty decent, especially with the Adrenaline 4. That still gives you 5 turns to do that. And yeah, the Tribute 1 on the self-poison, will you play off the books? With off the books, it's a 7 for 5 that can get you 2 points for every poison on it. The problem here is, I don't know what other gold cards Syndicate has. There's only been, one big gold card revealed, and it doesn't really have that much synergy with the poison. So I'm curious to see if there's, some sort of gold cards that synergize with this that have a bit of power. You'd have to play this in round 1, but then you'd have to play it early in round 1, which also makes it a bit awkward because most of your poison cards in Syndicate are bronzes. And if you play for this in round 3, you don't really want to do that because you want to play for gold cards and not for bronze cards, obviously. As for rating, I would probably give this card a 3 out of 10. I'm going to be quite strict with these ratings. This card seems kind of clunky. I can't give this a higher than a 3 because all the self-poison cards that exist in Syndicate are bronze cards. And if a bronze card only synergizes with bronze cards, that's never really that good. and just kind of makes the card kind of weak. So at the moment, at the current like state of the reveals that we had, I'd probably give this a 3 out of 10. Alright, and here we have Gerd. Deploy spawn a Deafening Siren on the opposite row and damage all units on that row by 1. Adrenaline 4, spawn a Deafening Siren on the opposite row and damage it by 1 instead. So it's 8 power, 7 provisions. In the worst case scenario, it plays for a 7. But a 7 that gives you a damaged unit as well, and sort of a target on the other unit. So it has some synergies with Bloodthirst, obviously. And the thing is that the Adrenaline 4 here works because most of the time you're going to get like 7+2 or 7+3 value on this card, because you have to play this rather early, because you do want to damage like units on the opposite row. This is like an early sort of big drop. That will get good value even if it gets like 2 damages. Like, it doesn't kill anything, but it's more of a synergy card, realistically. It's like an enabler for certain synergies, but it's a pretty good one at that. Also, it doesn't say it, but this card's a Witcher. He does look a lot like a warrior, but yeah, you can't tutor this with something like Blood Eagle, so you have to find this in your hand. I guess this is a really good card in round 1 because like it's good points, and it kind of sets up your bronze combos that you want to play for in round 1 where you don't invest your gold cards. So yeah, that's pretty decent. So what would I rate it? I'd probably give this card a solid like 7 out of 10. The 7 provision slot in Skellige has some pretty decent cards, to be fair. And Gerd is definitely one that you will see in quite a few Witcher decks. Yeah, this is probably going to be like a solid auto-include in those decks. I don't think you play this in every Skellige deck, though. Maybe you do. Actually, I don't know. Like, it's going to be a really good card. It is going to be quite decent, honestly. But I can't give this like a 9 or 10. Probably, I could give it like a 7 to 8, I guess. But I'm going to stick with 7. For this one. And here we have Coen. Zeal Order boost all units with power equal to Coen's power by the amount Coen is boosted. So at first I thought this card was actually really good, but it's not, because it boosts all units. So if your opponent also has like 5-point units, or I don't know, 6-point units, he will also boost them up by a bit. So maybe you play this with something like Earden, because you obviously are prone to boosting your opponent's units at times, especially if they're like sort of swarmy decks. With Amphibious Assault, you can immediately get this to a 5. Also with Radovit's Royal Guard, you can immediately get this to 5. So there's obviously some synergies with Belhaven. But yeah, other than that, I think this card's more of a meme card here. Northern Realms hasn't really been clear to what like they're trying to do with it yet. So gonna look forward to like Northern Realms and the cards that they're still going to reveal for them, because right now these reveals for Northern Realms really don't have an identity. I feel like Northern Realms is just getting kind of random cards here. So if I were to rate the card, I'd probably give it like a 2. Yeah, I'd give it a solid 2 out of 10. This card is going to be quite conditional and requires a bit of setup, so definitely a meme card in my opinion. Not sure what other cards they're going to reveal for Northern Realms to make this non-meme material, but yeah, at the moment it does look a lot like this is just a meme card, and I'm gonna have fun with it in certain decks. And here we have Brehen. Deploy, destroy the rightmost unit on an enemy row with at least 5 units. Adrenaline 3, destroy the rightmost unit on an enemy row with at least 3 units instead. So with Adrenaline here, it's like the later you play this card, the easier it is to get value off of the card, but that's kind of like redundant at that point, because by the time the Adrenaline actually gets triggered, it makes like the opponent should have enough units. The only reason the Adrenaline 3 exists is because this card is absolutely garbage in a short round. Like, you would have to sort of be able to spawn things like spies on the opponent's side of the field for this card to actually be worth it. With something like Patricidal Fury, this would be good, but this is obviously a Scoia'tael card, so Patricidal Fury ain't gonna do jack for this. And yeah, I guess you can set it up with Malena, and people will have to play around this card, but I do believe there's gonna be quite a few Scoia'tael cards that will move stuff. And it's funny that like positioning is gonna be quite important against Scoia'tael. Like, that's something that Gwent hasn't had for a while, is where like the way you place your cards makes a huge difference. Also, the problem with this having to deal damage to the rightmost unit is the fact that like every token in the game spawns on the right. So if you're playing against decks that play a lot of tokens, that this card could be kind of awkward. So you definitely have to have movement for this card to sort of be viable or like playable, and it's really bad in a short round. I'd probably give this a 5 out of 10. I'm not sure how much inclusion this card will see. It's quite hard to evaluate, especially with this one, because like it's really good as like tall punish, but it still requires a bit of setup. And Scoia'tael loves a bit of tall punish. Like, Scoia'tael has always needed something that punishes tall in one turn, which is why these no unit decks in Scoia'tael are so popular right now, because they just deal a lot of damage. And this card kind of does the same thing, but with a body attached to it. But you obviously don't want to play this in like a no unit deck. You want to play it in kind of like a more synergistic movement deck. So I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10, because there's situations where it's good, and then there's situations where it's really bad. So not going to be included in every Scoia'tael deck, but it's going to be included in some, and those decks will probably get good value off of it. But also, they cannot, because, you know, as I said, this card's pretty bad in a short round. And here we have Fallen Rayla, Profit 3, Tribute 3, Gain Veil, Adrenaline 3 whenever you pay Tribute ability, boost self by that Tribute's cost. So this card is pretty weak, I would say, honestly. It's like a Bincy, but it works with tributes. Now, we don't know if there's another card like Savola that exists or will exist that has Tribute 9 for a pretty powerful ability. So currently, this obviously synergizes best with Savola and Tin Boy. Maybe even Morels, that's also definitely an option. But also the problem with this card is that it is reliant on combos. Also, you have to definitely play this for its Adrenaline ability, because you want to gain the 3 boost that you get off of the Tribute here. So yeah, if you play this as a 5 without the Veil, it's going to be very vulnerable. With the Adrenaline, obviously, it's going to be an 8 with Veil, which could be quite decent. It's going to be quite hard to kill 8-point units. Not even Geralt can actually kill this if you play like this second to last with Savola or something. But the devs did say that this actually does not get value with Madame, because the way Madame is worded or phrased is that the next tribute ability is free. So you're actually not spending or like using any money to get that tribute. So this is going to be anti-synergetic with Madame, which I think is kind of bad. Like it is kind of weak, honestly. I think this card's not going to see a lot of play. I think this is probably one of the weaker like gold cards that they've revealed so far. Also, I feel like it's a bit overcosted. I mean, I don't know what other tribute cards will exist. So maybe there's going to be one super insane like 9 tribute card that just has like 40-point potential if you pair it up with this. But other than that, I don't really think this card will see much competitive play. It is a pretty funny card, to be fair, though. So if I'm going to give this card a rating, I'd probably rate it like either 4 or 3 out of 10. Probably going to give it a 4. Like, it's not terrible. It has some combo potential. But will this see play in every deck? Obviously not. It's not like a Philippa. It's not like a Sol. It's not like a MK. Like, the 5'11 stat line on this card seems pretty weak. And at the current state of the reveals, this is not looking like it's too strong. So yeah, I'd probably give this like a solid like 3 or 4. Alright, here we have Griffin Witcher. Order melee. Damage an enemy unit by 1, cooldown 1, adrenaline 3. At the end of your turn, damage a random enemy unit by 3, and lock self. So if you have 3 cards in hand, this card will basically just play for like a 7. But before that, it already is like an engine. There's not much good purifies in Northern Realms. With Kukudak, I guess you can get like double this ability, but I don't think that's going to be that worth it. As for an engine card, this is a pretty decent one because you can actually target with it, and it's still an order card. I mean, it is melee locked. It's like a archer, but is it going to be better than an archer? I'm not sure. Like, archer is so good because you can kind of like keep the charges if you know your opponent isn't going to be like dealing with the archers, and then you can like hold charges, which this card kind of can't do, but it has a bit of a better sort of short rounds ability because it then plays for like 4, deal 3, but it does deal a random enemy unit by 3. I don't think this card will see much competitive play, honestly. I feel like this is just like a card that you might add for no reason, realistically. Yeah, I don't see this card being that great in Northern Realms. I feel like there's better options in this 5 provision slot, so I'd probably give this like a 2 out of 10 This card probably won't see any play, honestly. I mean, unless there's like a card that has absolute nut synergy with this, but I don't really see that happening. And now we have Gaetan. Deploy. Move other cards from this row to another row. Damage a random enemy for every card moved by 1. So this is like Yavin, but not reliant on elves, basically. Like, this card is really, really crazy. Like, the combo potential on this card is absolutely massive. Like, there's one card that's coming up that has crazy combo potential, but already with Double Fauna Sentry, this can basically double up on its value. Like, for 7 provision with a 5 body, this will be auto-included in Scoia'tael. This is definitely the best Scoia'tael card that they've revealed so far. This will see play in pretty much every Scoia'tael deck. Like, this card is just amazing. Like, it's really, really good. There's a lot of good synergies it has with a lot of cards. Like, not every, like, you don't have to run every sort of movement synergy card, but, like, you would play sentries for this card alone. It's like an Oak that doesn't go tall, and, like, Oak is a really good card, and this is going to be a really good card as well. So, yeah, very good card. Probably going to give it a 10 out of 10. I think this is the one Scoia'tael card where I'm pretty sure this is going to be in every deck, because this card is just amazing. Like, it's so good. Like, I would put this in like every Scoia'tael deck if I could right now. I mean, maybe not Precision Strike, but even then you have like ways to sort of summon multiple units at once with like Precision Strike, Leader Ability, and the Novigradian Justice. So yeah, this is definitely a 10 out of 10 card. This will see play in pretty much every Scoia'tael deck. And here we have Arnagad. Deploy, gain 1 armor for every damaged unit. Adrenaline 4. When your opponent plays a unit, damage that unit by Arnagad's power and damage Arnagad by that unit's power. So it's kind of a dual card that kind of won't let your opponent play the card. Like, this card seems busted, doesn't it? Like, a lot of people are kind of scared of this card. I'm scared of this card, honestly. Like, I don't even know if the deploy ability matters here. Like, being able to, like, deal with 4 cards, like, at least 2 cards, and the synergies it has in Skellige as well. The main synergy card that you think of when you look at this card is Sucrose. Like, this card is insane with Sucrose. Like, it's actually kind of ridiculous how crazy it is with Sucrose. But not just Sucrose. Like, I would even play something like a Becker's Dark Mirror with this. I would even play something like a Restore with this. Like, people are forgetting these healing cards. Also, the Herbalist is also really, really good with this card because it might just get damaged by like 2 or 3 and then you can keep boosting it up. It's like an Imler's Sabbath from beta. It's just a bit more toned down, obviously. But maybe they have to kind of tweak this card. Like, I feel like the numbers just seem a bit off here. I feel like it's a bit too good. I don't think the 7 is fair. I don't think the 10 provisions is fair when something like Fallen Rayla is 11 provisions. And Adrenaline 4 seems a bit too much as well. I feel like it should be like Adrenaline 2 or Adrenaline 3 at least. Like, this card just seems like insane, bro. I feel like you can just play this in any Skellige deck. I'd play this in my Skellige Warrior deck right now if I could. I just dropped Totem for this, right? Like, why would I even bother with Totem if I can just play Arnagad? You obviously want to like play certain synergy cards with this, as I said, with the healing cards or like Sucrose maybe. But honestly, like, this card just seems kind of busted, if I'm honest here. Like, this card just seems kind of ridiculous. I'd probably give this a 10 out of 10, like, because I'd put this in pretty much every Skellige deck that if I could. Like, seriously, this is not even like a joke. Like, this card's absolutely insane. And now we have triangle within a triangle. That's a lot of triangles. Boost an ally by its provision cost or damage an enemy by its provision cost. So yeah, this card is a pretty decent spell. For 9 provisions, I'd say it's one of the better spells in the game right now. It's like really flexible. And you can play this with a lot of cards. Like, with Alzur, this card's kind of insane, right? Because it's like a spell that can deal damage and boost by like easily 10 or like 2 more value than its provision cost. Like, this card's just kind of solid, honestly. I'd probably give this like an 8 out of 10. Like, there's not really much to talk about the card. Like, I think the card design just seems solid and just seems flexible enough to be good and just run in multiple decks. Then we have Witcher Saboteur. Deploy. Move an enemy unit to the leftmost position on its row. Damage it by 1 for every card it passes. So this is basically like a worse Brehen's. Yeah, pretty much. It's just a worse Brehen's with a better like provision cost, I guess. And without the ability to obviously destroy the card. And the thing is, people can really easily play around this, right? Because they just have to play the card in the middle or like on the leftmost side anyway. Because like you have to use the rightmost card and then drag it to the left. I feel like this card's kind of bad, honestly. Like, it requires a bit too much setup, and it requires your opponent to kind of play a bit bad. In high level of plays, I don't think this card will see much play, in my opinion. I'd probably give this like a 2 out of 10. Like, it seems kind of harsh, but I think this card just won't see play because this card requires setup that you can't really control because it's the opponent that has to kind of set this up, and that's why the card is kind of bad. Alright, and here we have Coated Weapons. Damage an enemy unit by 5. Deathblow, banish it, and spawn a copy of it on top of your opponent's deck. So basically, this is one of those 5 damage, 5 provision cards, which honestly, like, they can't be bad. Like, those cards are never bad because they still deal 5 damage. It doesn't matter what its like upside or downside is realistically. Also, the thing is, like, you can banish something like a Crow Mother with this, and then basically play your own Crow Mother with Cantarella. Or you could also just kill, like, a 5-point token and put, like, a bad card on top of your opponent's deck, which is also quite funny with this card. There's a lot of, like, variants, but at the end of the day, you can't forget that this is just, like, a deal 5 card. Also, like, on turn 1, if your opponent plays, like, a 4-provision engine, and you kill this with this, you're actually never upset about that, because you're putting a weaker card on top of your opponent's deck while also having dealt with the card during that round. So that's why Coated Weapons is a 5 out of 10. I can't give this anything higher than that, honestly, but I can't give it anything lower than that because it's like a very basic card that does have some upsides and also kind of has some downsides, especially if you want to kill like big engines and the opponent might still have a tutor. So killing the engine with this won't really help much if the opponent can just re-tutor it back. But yeah, the card still seems kind of decent for being able to just deal 5 damage in a faction like Nilfgaard, and that's never a bad thing. Spontaneous Evolution. Organic. Boost an allied unit by 4 and gain additional effects based on unit's category. Insectoid, spawn 3 drones on boosted units row. Beast, boost that unit by 8 instead. Ogroid, give all Ogroids in your hand 2 armor. So let's forget these last 2 ones. Let's ignore the fact that they exist and look at this one. The Insectoid one is definitely the one you want. This one is really good because it plays for 7, and with the leader ability of Arachas Swarm, it plays for 8, giving you 4 drones alone with this, plus a 4 boost, which is just kind of good, honestly. It's like a really, really nice little swarm card that really helps a lot of cards in monsters. Arachas Behemoth, for example, might be a nice inclusion in a lot of monster decks now because the card actually plays for a lot. It clogs your board quite heavily, so maybe you have to play it with more like no unit sort of talisman payoff cards. But yeah, this card is definitely a really strong addition to Monster Swarm. As for the other 2 abilities, the Beast one seems alright. There's not that many beasts that need to be boosted though, so yeah, I don't really see the reason for that being this ability. And the Ogroid one makes like no sense unless there's like an Ogroid that has like armor synergy, and there is, but in Northern Realms, not in monsters, and that's obviously Trollolol. But yeah, maybe there is a card that synergizes with this, but other than that, I think the card seems pretty good. Like, the card is incredibly flexible. Like, a bronze card that gives you 3 choices is always like a really, really good card, right? So yeah, you can't ever go wrong. Like, yeah, you can't ever go wrong with this card in something like an Arachas Swarm deck for sure. I'd probably give it a 7. I could give it a 6 as well, because I don't think this card will see play outside of the Arachas Swarm, but because it's really good in Arachas Swarm, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. You have to consider in monsters, there's going to be 2 5-provision slots in the faction, always up for Endrega Larva. No card will ever replace that card in that slot. So yeah, that's why evaluating 5-provision bronzes in monsters is kind of useless. And here we have Bear Witcher Adept. Deploy damage self by 4. At the end of your turn, heal self by 1. While not damaged, gain 1 armor instead. This card is incredible. Like, this is a incredibly powerful card. It works well with the whole like damage archetype that Skellige is building right now, where it's not just about damaging the opponent, it's also about damaging yourself. And this card is a really good card for something like Priest as well. It's basically like a Drakkar without, the whole like armor synergy with cards like Mardrome maybe. But other than that, the card still like plays for quite a few points. You can play like Portal with it, and it'll gain like 1 armor every turn, which doesn't really mean much, because I don't think there's going to be a card that really synergizes that well with armor. Also, this is really good for like Haymay Protector, because like Haymay Protector is just a really good card in general. And yeah, I feel like this card is just a solid like... It's not going to be auto-included in Skellige. It might be auto-included in Skellige. I don't know. I'd probably give it like a solid 9 out of 10 though. Like, this card's really, really powerful, and it's really, really good. Like, it has a ceiling, but its ceiling doesn't really mean much because like the card has so many synergies within the faction that it's just like a really solid card to put in pretty much every deck for 4 provisions. And here we have Target Practice. Boost an allied unit by 4 if there is a Witcher in the boosted units row. Also spawn a Witcher student on that row. So Witcher student is a 2-point token, if you didn't know. So you spawn that, and then you play this for 4 points. So you play a total for 6 points for a Warfare card, which is kind of underwhelming. It's actually very underwhelming. This card's pretty bad, honestly. Like, I try to think of scenarios where this card would be great, but there's not really that many. I'd rather just play like a Royal Guard, maybe even a Mad Charge instead of this. Because like Mad Charge has some synergies with Northern Realms cards. This card has like 1 synergy with 1 card that's gonna come up, but other than that, there's not really that much you can do with this card. Like, it spawns, there's no real spawn synergies within Northern Realms. It puts a unit on your side of the field, but also boosting something, but is that really worth it? Also, it's conditional 6 points, which is really bad for a 4 provision card. So yeah, I'd probably give this like a 2 out of 10, maybe even a 1 out of 10. Probably gonna be a 2 out of 10 though. It can see like, it has like 1 nice little synergy with another 4P card in Northern Realms. Armor Up. Damage an enemy unit by 2. Spawn 2 Witcher students on the opposite row. Damage them by 1, then give them 1 armor. So this could theoretically put 4 damaged units on the board, basically, by you damaging the opponent's unit by 2, and then you putting 3 damaged units on your side of the field. Now, is this powerful? It's kind of underwhelming. Like, the card, you see the card and it has like a lot of synergies, but it's kind of just a synergy card. It's a card that plays quite slow and kind of just sets up like synergies that exist in sort of this new archetype, sort of the self-damage and like just all-out damage Skellige that's going to be happening here. But the thing is, this still isn't like a bad card. You can play this as a one-off to like sort of finish round 1 or something if you need it, but I don't think this card will see play, so I'll probably give this like I'll probably give it like a 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10. I think it's more a 4 out of 10 since it does have some nice synergies, but it's not OP. Like, you can't call this card OP because the card just isn't OP. It has some nice synergies with healing cards and like the whole damage stuff, but it kind of clogs your side of the field and doesn't really do much with the 2 damage realistically. So yeah, that's what Armored Up is. It's kind of underwhelming, honestly. Failed Experiment, a 9 for 5, something we've yet to see, but now we actually have it. At the end of your turn, lose 1 coin. If you have no coins, damage yourself by 1 instead. While poisoned, disable this ability. So basically, you have to poison a 9-point unit for this to just not get like lower than 9 value. And then you just run into poison, which is kind of bad. I guess it has synergies with Sucrus, but the problem is like, you're basically losing a coin for this ability to stay alive. Like, for this, is it worth losing 1 coin here? I'm not sure. The thing is also, it kind of has synergies with healing cards like the Apothecary, which is going to be quite interesting. So yeah, I mean, is it worth it to play this for Apothecary? Honestly, it might be. But the thing is, like, you have to set up coins for Apothecary, and you're always losing a coin if you have coins in the bank. Like, this is unconditional. You can't really say that you want to damage this by 1. You always, like, you either have coins in your bank or you don't. And to set up things like Apothecary, it's going to be quite awkward. Also, I guess Becker's Dark Mirror is, I guess, okay, but yeah, you probably want to just poison this and hope you're not playing against Nilfgaard or like Hidden Cache or like Syndicate as well. The 9/5 body is just very powerful at the end of the day. Like, you play against something like Skellige or like a faction that doesn't really do anything with poisons, and the card becomes really good, right? Because then it's just a 9 for 5. that you have to poison, to be fair, but it's still quite powerful. I'd probably give this a 4 out of 10 though. Like, it's not great. I don't think this will see play in a lot of decks, but it can sort of see play in these sort of certain decks that will play for this. And maybe it's kind of bad. Maybe it's just a 3 out of 10, to be honest. It's below average, that's for sure. Then we have Berengar. Sorry for the quality on this picture. It's really bad for some reason. At the end of your turn, destroy this card if it's the only Witcher on this row. This card is like a 9 for 6. They made kind of like the 10 for 7 a standard, so I guess they're gonna make 9 for 6 a standard as well. So this condition is like that you have like a Witcher on your row and this stays alive. I guess if you're playing all-out Witchers, you're definitely gonna play this. I'm not sure how viable all-out Witchers is gonna be. To be fair, there will be a lot of Witcher cards, so this could just be a nice little sort of neutral 9 for 6, which is not terrible, honestly. Like, it's not bad, but it's also not that great either. Like, it doesn't really do much. It's just kind of like an out in round 1. Like, and the thing is, it will be good in monsters, but monsters doesn't really play much Witchers, so that's kind of also a bit of a problem with this card. So, yeah, Berengar, probably like a 5 out of 10. I'd probably give you a 5 out of. It's like a super average card that can see play in some decks, but probably won't see play in every deck. Like, it's obvious, like, you have to play this in a Witcher deck. It's blatantly obvious. Here we have Griffin Witcher Mentor. Deploy, draw the top unit, then shuffle a card back to your deck. Adrenaline 4, boost the unit you've drawn by 2. So this is a pretty weird card. The problem with the Adrenaline 4 is that it's very late. Like, it's an incredibly late sort of ability to have, because what you want to do with this card, right, is you draw an engine and it's boosted by 2, so then you can play the engine and it's going to be harder for the opponent to kill. But if the Adrenaline 4 exists, you have to play that engine quite late, which does make the sequencing a lot more awkward with this card. I feel like this card's kind of bad. I guess the 2 main targets you want with this is like Anses, or I guess Kian also works. I guess Coen also works, but you then have to obviously set it up, and the card has to be on top of your deck, so you have to play something like Fisher King as well, maybe. Maybe they'll change Pincer Maneuver to have more synergies with cards like this, but as for the moment, like, I don't really see this card fitting into Northern Realms, and it's just kind of like a bad ability in general, because the Adrenaline 4 is a bit too late, right? Because you want to like get the 2 boost as early as you can on a card that you want to play as early as you can. So yeah, I don't really see a reason to play this card ever. Like, it's probably just like a 2 out of 10. Like, it doesn't really fit into Northern Realms that much. I don't, like, the thing is, like, all the Northern Realms cards are just so random. Like, I don't see any sort of synergies within them, so it's going to be quite interesting to see what other cards Northern Realms is going to get. Then we have Stolen Mutagen, a crime, a Salamander crime. Pick a mutagen. Red, damage an enemy unit by 4. Blue, poison an allied unit and gain 5 coins. Green, boost an allied unit by 4 and give it Veil if you control at least 3 Salamander units. Profit 3. So all of these kind of work with this whole like kind of self-poison thing, except for red. And honestly, red is quite a good ability. Like, dealing 4 damage and getting 3 profit for that is like a dip in a Pontar that's just better. But it does require you to have 3 Salamander units, which you can easily get with something like Azar. But let's be real. How many times have you played Azar and actually had 3 Salamander units by the end of your turn? So you might have to set this up a little bit. It's quite a disgusting card art now that I look at it very closely. And yeah, I mean, damaging a unit by 4 is probably the best one. I mean, poisoning an allied unit and getting like 8 coins out of that is pretty good as well. But is it worth it? I mean, it's not terrible, but like, I don't know, man. It feels kind of clunky with the self-poison. And the Veil also kind of does the same thing. Like, the Veil and the Poison both can be played in the same decks, because you obviously, if you give poison to a veiled unit, it won't die, or like it'll just receive the poison but won't get anything out of it. So the veil could come in handy, but I think like boosting by 4 isn't really worth it. The only thing that would be really worth it is red and blue in this case. So yeah, most of the time I think people are just gonna play this for the red ability, but then you have Payday, which kind of does the same thing but a little bit better. I guess it's better for value. Yeah. I mean, yeah, blue also is kind of decent, honestly. Like, getting 8 coins, like, with lined pockets, you can actually get 9 coins with this is kind of funny, but yeah, if that's actually worth it, I don't know. It's so hard to evaluate a card that can do 3 things, right? That's just good, right? Being able to do 3 things, or, like, vary around 3 things that all kind of do something different, seems kind of decent. Like, I'd probably give this like a 5 out of 10. Like, a card that gives you 3 option can never be bad. So yeah, I think 5 out of 10 seems fair for this one. Like, you can play it in crime decks as a one-off maybe. Like, I don't know what other sort of synergies exist in Syndicate just yet, but yeah, it seems alright, honestly. And here we have Eunut of Belhaven. Deploy, destroy damaged enemy unit. Now, this is a familiar ability. We used to see this on Vabjorn. This used to be Vabjorn's ability with the same stat line. Kind of weird that they didn't really change anything about the ability. So, yeah, I mean, the card back in the day didn't see that much play. People still didn't play Vabjorn in Peak Skomega LOL, which is kind of funny. I mean, they obviously started playing him when he became a raid tutor, but before that, he used to have this ability, and then people didn't still play him, right? So Eunut of Belhaven, I mean, it's a 5 out of 10 ability, right? It's like, I probably have to give this a 5 out of 10. I don't know if there's like a card that's like, okay, damage a enemy unit by 1, go through armor or something, and that can set up the Eunuts. But other than that, like, the card's kind of like niche and doesn't really fit into many decks. And it's not even that good against that many decks because like not every deck goes that tall on base power. So yeah, Eunut of Belhaven has kind of a ceiling, which could be quite annoying, but yeah. That's pretty much all there is to him. And here we have Cosimo Malaspina. Deploy, transform adjacent units into random units that cost 1 provision more. Now, I'm quite familiar with this card since I'm the one who revealed it. Also, look at me in the card art. Haha, it looks just like me. At first, I didn't think so, but the more I look at it, the more I actually see myself in this card art, which is kind of funny, I guess. So the card itself, I think the card is best in something like Northern Realms. We have Philippa and Adalia, who you can both transform into higher provision units, which would be quite interesting. So it probably sees value with those cards, but other than those like 2 cards, I can't really see many cards that would gain value off of this. I guess Avalak the Sage does, but who plays Avalak the Sage anyway? I guess all the sort of tutors, like I guess the Fav, Menos, and so on and so forth, seem pretty good as well with this. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously a meme card, but it does have sort of potential to be kind of powerful in certain decks. Kind of just like a value play mostly. Like, you don't really play this for like, oh yeah, let me get a defender, or yeah, let me get this insane engine. Like, you probably just want to get value off of this card by basically using the transform ability to gain extra points off of certain cards, which does seem kind of funny. Plus, you can also like always get high roll yourself to victory with this card, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'd probably give this card a 3 out of 10. It's not a terrible card, honestly. Like, I'd probably even give it a 4. Like, it obviously can't get anything higher than a 5, but honestly, for like a meme card, this doesn't seem too terrible. And here we have Griffin Witcher Adept. Shield Order. Transform an allied Witcher into a base copy of Griffin Witcher Adept. So this card could be quite powerful if it wasn't limited to transforming only Witchers. Like, the thing is, if this card were able to sort of turn every unit into Griffin Witcher Adept, like, Ragnar might become like a tier. Maybe not tier 1, but definitely tier 2, because this card can work with Frigate quite well, because both of them create 2 points passively, but you do have to click those points, so they're not actually like passive abilities, they're active passive abilities. And then you can have like a crazy Ragnar setup, which would also be quite fascinating. Like, every card he transforms basically transforms into another order card, so it's like an ethereal, but it's an ethereal that has shield, right? And that's a big difference between this and ethereal. So yeah, definitely a card that will see play. I mean, we don't really know Northern Realms at all this expansion. Like, all the cards that they've revealed from Northern Realms so far just have no synergy with each other, it seems. So maybe there's gonna be a card that synergizes with this, maybe not. Maybe this is just like a weird value card for certain situations. And yeah, as for rating, I'll probably give this a 3 out of 10? I don't know. Like, I can't really evaluate the card. There's not much to show for that would be like, where I would be like, yeah, I put this card in there. Because, like, there's not many Witchers in Northern Realms that I want to transform yet. So, we'll see. Well, I guess we'll just have to see. Then we have Idr. Order, Adrenaline 3. Consume all tokens on this row and gain immunity. Whenever you consume 1 or more units, spawn a drone on this row. So whenever you consume 1 or more units, so like the second part of this text, is not reliant on Adrenaline, so this will always be a passive for this ability, which could be quite decent, actually. Like, spawning drones is pretty good because, like, it'll eat the drones anyway and gain immunity. Also, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the Ogroid in the room, the She-Troll synergy. This is definitely a card you want to play with She-Troll, because, like, the order ability helps like She-Troll just become tall immediately, and then it's going to be harder to kill for the opponent because then you probably both play She-Troll and Glusty again, because you will be able to swarm a lot with these new cards that have come out. So definitely an interesting looking card. I don't think it's going to be included in every deck. And there's also like synergies with things like Ran Warrior as well. So like the whole like consume stuff is pretty interesting. And the fact that it's immune kind of rocks because it's just an immune unit. That's pretty good, right? And at 7, it's pretty hard to kill as well, being base 7 and then having like side synergies with certain cards and then also having a passive, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I guess this is a pretty good card actually. Like it is not terrible. Like it isn't bad at all. Like I actually do like it. I'd probably give it like a 5 out of 10 though, because I can't see this card being played in every deck, but the decks that will see it are going to be quite good, honestly. Then we have Viper Witcher Mentor. Deploy set power of this card to match provision cost of the top card in your opponent's deck. Adrenaline 2, set the power of this card to match provision cost of the highest cost card in opponent's deck instead. So this is a bronze with a ridiculous ceiling, right? This could play for like 14 points for 6 provisions, which is absolutely insane actually if you think about it, but it boosts itself so it can be reset, or it just runs into tall punish anyway. But the thing is, like, this card is actually really good. Like, it is kind of just really good because you can really easily set it up with your cards that do stuff to your opponent's deck, and then you kind of just play this card. And the card also kind of gives you knowledge. Like, you play something like a Courier, and that puts a big card on top of the deck, and then we can just play the Viper Witcher Mentor for a lot of points. So, yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see what this card can do. Nilfgaard Mirrors are going to be quite funny, actually, I think. Like, you're going to put a card on top of your opponent's deck, the opponent's going to play something like Joachim or so. Or, like, you're going to put something on your opponent's deck, and he's going to play, like, Cantarella and stuff. Like, it's going to be quite a weird, like, meta for Nilfgaard for sure. But this card is definitely a card that Nilfgaard wants because it plays for actual points, and points are good in Nilfgaard because Nilfgaard doesn't really have any points. And to also have the out of being like a late game finisher or like a late round finisher in round 1 with the Adrenaline 2 also kind of helps a bit. So if you're not able to sort of set this card up, you're usually going to find like at least like 11 value out of this card in round 1 because you can't assume that the opponent drew every gold. Like if this gets like a 6 boost in round 1, you're like, that already means that the opponent has played like pretty much their entire gold hand. So if you made it that far, you're already in a good position anyway. So yeah, this card is kind of like cheaty. I'd probably give this like a solid 8 out of 10 even. I probably might even give it a 9 out of 10. But I think in a short round, this could be kind of awkward since in a short round, if your opponent thins his deck effectively enough, this will obviously not gain that much value since at the end of the game, the opponent should only have like 4 provision cards in his deck usually. So yeah, that's why Viper Witcher Mentor probably gets just an 8, but it's really good, honestly. Like the card is just kind of good. Like people don't like the design. I really like the design actually of this because it's kind of like a roulette card, but it usually always gets value, like because you can set it up and you can also like just wait for the Adrenaline 2 to function its ability. And then we have the Bear Witcher, as the London people would say. He's a Bear Witcher, mate. Deploy damage self by 3, Adrenaline 4, damage self and an enemy unit by 3 instead. So this is basically like a veteran that can also damage the opponent's side if you wait a little bit. The thing is, this card is really powerful, right? The Adrenaline 4 is so, like, it's like a sweet spot, isn't it? Because, like, it's like towards the end of the round, it's like mid-round, you play this card, set up 2 damaged units, maybe even kill an engine from the opponent. And yeah, the card just becomes really good then, right? Because then you like deal 3 damage and deal 3 damage to yourself, and you get 2 damaged units, and then you can play cards that synergize with the damage that have like a lower adrenaline, I guess. So yeah, I mean, this card's just like a solid, like it's boring design, but it's very, very solid, right? There's nothing really wrong with this card. I mean, if you're forced to play it, you're probably playing it wrong, right? So yeah, it plays for an 8. After Adrenaline 4, an 8 for 5 with its like additional synergies and the damage. Like you can't forget how big the damage here is. Like 3 damage is quite huge. Like, you can take out some stuff with that for sure. And yeah, but you have to obviously wait for it. So that's a bit of a downside. But I'd probably still give this like a solid 8 out of 10. I feel like this is going to be played in quite a few sort of Witcher decks in Skellige. Genuinely, Skellige has such boring designs, but they just have good cards because they are boring designs. And yeah, this is one boring design, but it's definitely a good card. You can't deny that. And now we have Geralt Quinn. Shield. Deploy, play a Witcher from your deck. Adrenaline 3, give it shield. So if you play the last card, the Bear Witcher with Geralt Quinn, it's actually going to be an 11-point play where you get an 8 body and a 2 body. So 10 and then 3 damage. So basically almost like a Novigradian Justice, but like with 3 damage attached to it. But we're obviously not just talking about the Bear Witcher. There's obviously other cards that definitely synergize with the fact that this can give shield. The thing is, like, the Adrenaline 3 giving shield, I think the best card in the current state of Witchers is the Ciri, Vanilla Ciri, to play with this, because all your other like cards that you would give shield and that are also Witchers, you want to play them early on, right? They're like Lamberts or Evo. Those cards kind of do want to be played early. But a card like Ciri with shield does sound quite scary, actually, because it's going to be quite difficult for the opponent to deal with. But it does cost you a lot of provisions to play that, obviously. You can't forget that you're paying 20 provisions to basically not lose your card. And not losing your card could also be quite effective in a lot of situations. So yeah, that's Geralt Quinn for you. Also being able to tutor like a Vesemir early. Like, this card's going to be played in a lot of decks, I think. It's probably not going to be auto-include, but certain decks that rely on certain Witchers. I think like Skellige, like, if you like, you just play this card to get that one Witcher. Dude, that one Witcher with shield, bro. Bro, what the hell, dude? That's broken. Wait, oh my god. You just play this in Skellige, right? This is insane with Skellige. Yeah, this card's insane in Skellige. Like, genuinely, I think Skellige is going to be tier 1 again, but that's just, I think, a broad prediction. And I think a lot of people will also think that Skellige is going to be tier 1 here. And Geralt Quinn will definitely see play in those decks. So, yeah, Geralt Quinn, I'd say I'd probably give it a solid, like, 7 out of 10. Like, you won't play this in every deck, obviously, because it's a bit reliant on your deck being Witcher. But I think not every Witcher deck has to play this as well. But I think some Witcher decks that really rely on certain cards definitely want to play this card. And, yeah, that's why it's good. But it's obviously not going to be, like, that fantastic, because it's still quite expensive. Then we have Viper Witcher Adept. At the end of your turn, boost self by 1 if opponent has more cards in the deck than you. So it plays for 4. I mean, if you're doing what you have to do, and that is obviously putting cards in your opponent's deck with cards like Cynthia, or just in general, playing this through Portal could also be possible, because you're thinning your deck by 2, and then you put out these Viper Witchers, and then you have obviously less cards in your deck than the opponent, and then you can keep adding cards into your opponent's deck throughout the rounds. But the thing is with Portal is, like, Portal is really slow if you play it in any round other than round 1. So yeah, you have to obviously be careful with playing cards like Portal in these decks. But I think Viper Witcher Adept can see play. It's not the greatest of cards. I'd probably give it like I'd probably give it a 3 out of 10 still, because like, it's a 4 provision card that is like a Magni Division, basically. And I guess if Nilfgaard has another Magni Division, that's not that bad. Like, Magni Division C is quite a frequent play. This one needs a bit of more synergies within itself. Plus, you can't really play this turn 1, whereas Magni you can always kind of like play turn 1. I mean, without Portal, obviously, you can't play this turn 1 because it's just going to be a 3 and going to be very easily dealt with. So, yeah, Viper Witcher probably just going to be a 3 out of 10. And here we have Cat Witcher. At the end of your turn, move self to the other row and damage a random enemy on the opposite row by 1. Adrenaline 4, damage it by 2 instead. So basically, this is quite interesting because the opponent might be forced to row stack for this, but you obviously should have enough movement for this to gain value. Also, Adrenaline 4, damaging it by 2, that seems pretty good, honestly. Like, this is a pretty good bronze for Squirtle. This is a bronze that they've always kind of wanted, and it's perfect that they printed this on a bronze and not a gold, because you want to play multiples of this for sure, because it's just a solid engine, right? With Double Fauna Sentry paired up with this, it's pretty good. It's like 2 points per turn, technically. And then with Adrenaline 4, it's going to become 3 points per turn. So you can set up like your movement tools really easily. Like, there's going to be very tight movement spots within Squirtle these days now. I think like Matrons, Sentries, and this are definitely going to become like a very, very powerful pairing in this game, because this just seems like a really powerful card. Like, yeah, it's quite easy to deal with at 4, but like, you're going to be playing more than this engine, and like, not every deck is going to be like an all-out control deck at the start of this meta. So yeah, this could be quite a powerful card in Squirtle's edition, and I'd probably give it like a solid 7 out of 10. Yeah, this is definitely a 7 out of 10. It'll be quite good in the decks that play it in. I'm not sure if you can play this in every Scoia'tael deck, though. Maybe you can. The 5 provision slot in Scoia'tael's looking kind of dead, but you do want to play those Mahakam Volunteers for sure, and then slotting this in over Rebuke. I'm not sure. But yeah, this card will definitely see play, though. Like, this is not like a bad card by any means necessary. And here we have the Fuca. I have to pronounce it like that so I don't get demonetized, guys. Haha. Veil Thrive. Units played by your opponent trigger this unit's Thrive ability. So this card is like one of the most beautiful looking arts, but I don't think it'll see play at all. It's like way overcosted at 5 provisions, but if it was 4 provisions, like why would you ever play a regular Necker over this? So it has to be 5 provisions. The Veil and the 1 armor do kind of make a bit of a difference. Not sure how big of a difference they're going to make, but they are going to make quite a big difference. I'm not sure if Monsters has any sort of ways to make your opponent's cards bigger, I guess. That shouldn't really be a thing. I mean, yeah, but like, yeah. It's like, this also kind of messes up your Thrive curve as well, which is really awkward. I'd probably give this card like a 2 out of 10, honestly. Like, I don't know why anyone would put this in their deck if cards like a Draga Larva exist. Like, honestly, this card seems kind of meh. And here we have Kosher, Thrive. Whenever this unit's Thrive is triggered, spawn a drone in this row. Adrenaline 4, whenever a unit's Thrive is triggered, spawn an Draga Larva on this row instead. So I mentioned a Draga Larva with Fuca. And yeah, this card is absolutely fantastic. Like, this card is just nuts. Like, the 4 body, 3 armor is so good. Like, your opponent has to deal with this card, right? And you just play this with Caranthir anyway. Like, you're getting good value off of Caranthir. Like, you have to play this with Caranthir. There's no way you're not playing this card with Caranthir. It's way too good with Caranthir. And, like, in itself, like, it's so goddamn good, man. Like, this is just raw value. And, like, the opponent has to deal 7 damage to it, man. 7. Do you know how hard 7 damage is? I mean, if you're Skellige, dealing 7 damage is like a piece of cake these days. But yeah, there's not much cards, like much factions that can sort of deal this much damage in one turn. And if this card pops off, dude, you're going to win, like, right? Like, this is just too much value. Like, spawning a Endrega Larva whenever a Thrive is procced, bro, in the short round, like, even in a short round, that's insane. Like, that is way out of proportion. Like, this is just so good, man. This is a 10 out of 10 card. You just play this for value. This can be played in pretty much every monster deck, right? If you just pair it up with Caranthir, it'll just become like an auto-include sort of card that exists. Like, and even if the opponent deals with it, he's just dealing with it for like 4 tempo. And like, if your opponent plays a 4 tempo card against monsters, that's just not good. So yeah, this card's a 10 out of 10. This card's absolutely friggin' nuts. I might over-evaluate this, but I feel like this card's just kind of bonkers, honestly. Then we have Evar, Evil Eye. Deploy, swap Evar's power with an enemy unit. Adrenaline 2, damage an enemy unit by 4 instead. So they add the adrenaline here as sort of a downside. So you have to play this, obviously, early to get major value. And major value this card does get, because on a 10-point card, this is already like 16 for 10. And like a 16 for 10... bro, that's just kind of nuts, isn't it? Like, this card's a 10 out of 10 rating. If this was to exist in Nilfgaard right now, every Nilfgaard deck would have this. And now it exists in Nilfgaard. And every Nilfgaard deck will have this because this card is just kind of ridiculously good. Like, seriously, this card is kind of broken, if I'm honest. It's not, like, entirely broken, but, like, it forces, like, an entire meta around it, right? Because, like, people can go crazy on, like, Hamadryads. They can't go crazy on, like, Sages. They need defenders to play around it, but like Nilfgaard and defenders is like a hopeless case, right? They have like 15 answers for a defender anyway, so yeah, Evar will most likely get a lot of value in a lot of games. I wouldn't know too many decks that play like 0 tall units where Evar doesn't get value. Maybe like Swarm decks. Maybe this card will be quite weak against Swarm decks. That could be quite awkward for this, but the card will be put into every Nilfgaard deck without like a second thought. For 10 provisions, the value on the card is just too solid, honestly. And here we have Hybrid. Whenever you consume 1 or more units, boost self by 1. So this is basically like a Vran Warrior, just worse. And that's really all I can say about the card, because it's just the Vran Warrior, but worse. I mean, you can play it with Portal and like set it up with a Death Wish card. Like, you can play Ruahin and like Overwhelming Hunger, and then play the Portal, and these become like 5-point units that might gain like a point per turn if you're playing like a Slicer or something. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a basic card. Like I'd probably give this like a 4 out of 10. Like I don't think the card will see that much play. Like it's just like a 1 point per turn card that it's quite easily triggered, to be fair. And there are ways to like get multiple consumes during a turn, but something like a Ran Warrior doesn't really synergize with this. Also Glusty just gives this 1 boost, whereas compared to something like Ran Warrior, the Glusty gives the Ran Warrior like 1 extra boost for each unit consumed. So yeah, as I said, this is just a worse version of Ran Warrior. And that's like why it's a 4 provision card and not like a 5 provision card like Ran Warrior is. And here we have Making a Bomb. Move an enemy unit to the other row and give it bleeding 4. If it's the only unit on that row, damage it by 4 instead. So we get the bomb tag in Scoia'tael. Like this card is just a filler card. It's like a Blue Mountain Elite that deals 4 damage but for less tempo. Or it's a Vryhead Dragoon that this takes like 4 turns to actually get its value. So I don't know why you would put this card into any deck. Realistically, it doesn't seem that good, because like you just have Dragoon in that 4-piece slot for the movements, and like yeah, you can kill a Magni turn 1, but like against Scoia'tael they can usually like boost stuff up. So yeah, Making a Bomb seems like a pretty decent bad card. Like I'd probably give this like a 1 out of 10. I don't think this card will see play ever. I don't think we'll ever see this card being played. And here we have Cat Witcher Mentor. Deploy boost self by the number of other cards on this row. Adrenaline 4 whenever a card appears on this row, boost self by 1. So what's insane about this card is the synergy with that one Witcher that damages by the amount of units on that row. If you remember, that guy also like moved all the other units on this side. So if you play the Cat Witcher Mentor on like a full row and then move it down with like a Dragoon and then play the other guy, dude, you're like getting so much value off of this card. Like this card is actually kind of bonkers. It is pretty crazy. Like it's like a cheap sort of Mahakam Guard that also has like additional value with cards like Treant Boar. Not sure if it's going to be auto include though in Scoia'tael. It is going to be quite effective though. Like it's quite a nice little point card that gives you good tempo in round 1. So yeah, if I were to give a rating to this card, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. This is like a solid 6 out of 10 because I can see it actually being played in quite a few Scoia'tael decks, because Scoia'tael doesn't have that much issue with like getting a lot of units on their side as fast as possible, because like Mahakam Guard itself is a really powerful card, and this card also has like additional synergies with certain cards as well. So that's going to be quite interesting to see what kind of combos you can pull off with this card, because this is quite a nice little combo card with certain cards that already exist in Scoia'tael, and I really like the design on it. Like, it's just a guard, but it has like the additional ability, which is quite cool. And here we have the Bear Witcher Mentor. Deploy boost self by 1 for every damaged allied unit. Adrenaline 3, boost self by 1 for every damaged unit instead. So this is like the Giant Boar, but like you have to obviously have 3 cards in hand for it to trigger. The thing is, like, the adrenaline here makes, like, it's kind of redundant, because in a long run you usually want to play this as late as possible because you obviously get the most value out of it. I guess the adrenaline 3 is a bit low though, so in like a round 1, if it's like 5 turns in or so, and you don't have that many damaged units on your side of the field, the card could be quite clunky. So yeah, I think the adrenaline 3 is actually quite nicely balanced here. So yeah, Bear Witcher Mentor, definitely a card that I would also give like a 6 out of 10, because it does require a bit of setup, and you might not even play 2 of this card, because maybe 2 copies of this card in your hand could be a bit awkward in round 1. But the card will probably see play in a lot of decks, because it's like a 5 provision Giant Boar. I mean, Giant Boar isn't great, but for 7 it isn't great. If it was 5 provisions, it's obviously a completely different story. And here we have Colgrim. Adrenaline 2, at the end of your turn, boost self by the difference between number of cards in players' decks. This is probably going to be one of my first meme cards episodes, because I have a really stupid idea with this one. I'm not going to say what it is. Some people probably already know what it is. I mean, it's quite easy to sort of get from the text of this. So yeah, this card basically has 3 turns to boost itself by the difference in cards. This could be like 7 card difference, would probably be like the golden spot, so you're getting like 21 points off of that. But then obviously this card goes quite tall. And if the opponent only has like 2 or 3 cards like difference, like this isn't really that great, is it? So I mean, I don't know how many like cards really manipulate the deck that well in Nilfgaard right now, but cards like Infiltrator could be quite funny, and also like Cynthia and all the other cards that sort of synergize with the whole like deck clogging archetype. Or also Hyperthin could kind of work with this card quite nicely. Because it's 9 provisions, you could actually play it in Hyperthin with Cyrenova as well. So that's kind of good about it. But in general, I think the card just isn't good enough yet to be playable, because like it's really bad in like a round 1. This is only really good in round 3, isn't it? Because like both players should probably thin their deck quite effectively in round 1, or should try to thin their deck. So in round 1, I think both players should be on the same amount of thinning, whereas by round 3 there's going to be different like cards played and like different sort of strategies happening. And Colgrim might only benefit after that in a round 3. So I'd probably give this card a 3 out of 10. It does have potential. Like, it's really hard to evaluate because we've not seen every card that maybe synergizes with this. But so far from the cards that I've seen, it does have some funny little synergies. And there's definitely decks that can play this card. But is it going to be that effective? I don't think so. But it could be quite powerful in a lot of situations as well. And here we have Viper Witcher. Deploy, put Bleeding 2 on an enemy unit. Adrenaline 6, spawn a copy of that unit at the top of the opponent's deck. Adrenaline 6 is like pretty easy actually, like it's literally the 7th card you play, which, you know, is like it's early enough, honestly. But the problem with this card is like it's super low tempo. Like 2 bleeding is quite low tempo, but then the additional ability is also quite scary, because being able to put bad cards in your opponent's deck is incredibly powerful. Like putting 1-point tokens or 2-point tokens in the opponent's deck with this card is like really annoying. Like it has to be super annoying to just draw into like a 1-point unit that you've mulliganed like the previous round. It's gonna be really bad if you're like a deck with a bunch of tokens and the opponent draws 2 Viper Witchers on red coin, where the tempo doesn't really matter that much, and then he basically gives you 2 bricks in your deck, which that actually seems quite scary, honestly. So yeah, Viper Witcher is quite hard to evaluate though, because like he's playing for so low tempo, but his ability is actually quite scary at the same time. So it's gonna be quite hard to actually rate this card. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10 for the moment though, because I feel like the 6 tempo that this card has isn't good enough. But obviously like there's so many like combos you can make with this, which just make the card very interesting. And that was all the cards. I might have forgotten the rating on 1 or 2 cards, but as you can tell, I'm still a bit hungover, guys. This is going to be my excuse for making bad evaluations, by the way. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little card review. I'm looking forward to this expansion. I'm also kind of scared of this expansion. Some of these cards seem kind of broken, if I'm honest. And we'll see how the meta shapes up once people realize how to play with all these cards, or like synergize with all these cards. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe for more Gwent content, and I'll see you soon.